Hello and welcome to The Life You're Made For. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Pinney. Often our world feels reactive, confusing, and chaotic. On this show, we're going to slow down together. Take a breath, listen, and learn. We'll be joined in conversations with influential thinkers who will help us make new connections, understand our unique potential, check the beliefs we hold, and learn how to overcome unexpected challenges. I know that each and every one of us holds our own inner clarity, confidence, and courage, what I call 3C living and leading. So let's go after it together. I'm cheering you on. My first book, The Life You're Made For, I wrote this for you to feel like you have your own coach in your corner, to increase your clarity, build your confidence, and engage your courage. I'm excited about how this book is transforming lives because it's like a manual. I also wrote a coaching companion that goes with this, and you can buy both of these off Amazon. Cheering you guys on. Hello, Sharol. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. So good to see you again.
You too. I am so grateful for you in my life. Boy, we've gone back years now that I've been thinking about it. Yeah. And when I thought about this,
at least 2 decades.
I'm sorry?
At least 2 decades we've been together.
That's a while. Wow. Yeah. So when I was thinking of this Good Guide series, you were someone that came to mind. And here's what I've promised my audience. There are people that I have known for the long term. So you heard that, listeners. It's a couple decades that we've known each other, because we all know that it's that long game that we're looking at. How do you finish well in life? How do you step up when it's your time to step up? How do you live out of your true authentic self? How do you live and go after the life you're made for? These are all things that we want. And so Good Guides are a part of that. And Sharol has been an awesome friend, guide, mentor in my life because she's a little further ahead of me. And so she was someone I would bring stuff to at times, and we would bounce things off of each other. So we had some really great kind of guiding conversations. And then I watched her guide a tremendous amount of people. I saw a lot of people going to her for guidance. So listeners, I think you're going to be in for a treat just because Sharol has that experience. But personally, I've been able to watch her step into that.
Oh, well, and you've been a good guide to me too. It works both ways often.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sharol. Before we jump in, why don't you tell everybody a little bit of what you do and who you are?
Sure. What am I? Currently, I'm a leadership coach for Family Life Global, which means along with my husband, we coach about 100 leaders around the world who lead marriage and family organizations in different countries. And so we went from being ourselves the kind of teachers and guides for other couples and people looking for relationship coaching to now actually coaching the people who are doing the guiding and the leading. So it's been kind of a change in focus. And to be honest, I kind of miss the hands-on piece, but it's hands-on in a different way. But I spent my first chunk of my life was in television news. And then the second chunk of my life has been in kind of coaching marriages and family relationships and really all relationships. So relationship coaching primarily.
Well, and doesn't everything come down to relationships? It's
totally
two things. Communication and relationships are usually the two biggies, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I spent, so many years reporting on the news. And it kind of, at one point I thought, I actually want to be part of changing the news instead of just reporting on it. And I was very strategic, actually. The best way to change the world is through relationships. If we can strengthen our relationships and particularly our family relationships, we can change the course of the world.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And, when I talk with people, particularly these high achieving powerhouses, you're expecting them to come to you with, hey, what's some leadership principles or what's something I can do for my culture? And there's certainly some of that conversation there. But I'll tell you what they're coming to me about is saying, okay, we got a relationship here that went sideways, or I'm not sure I really handled this the way that I think I should have, or can you give me a little bit of guidance on the next time this happens, how I handle it? And it all has to do with relationships.
It does. Yeah. When it comes down to it, all we have is people.
Yes. Yes.
Good and for ill, all we have is people.
Yes. So I think good guidance is something that you and I both value. We've had good guides in our life, formal and informal. Formal ones like we've paid for and brought them into our life. Informal like you and me, where we've had a friendship that's just we've bounced things off of each other here and there and hold similar values. But I guess that's where I want to jump in. What are some good guides that you've had in your life and maybe some good guidance you've received that it still sticks with you?
Oh, wow. Um, well, interestingly enough, I haven't had many kind of formal guide relationships where I've said, "Will you guide me, or will you mentor me, or will you
Mm,
coach me?" I love that you also included informal guides because I think that's been more my case, and
mhm,
more situational guides. So rather
mm,
than sort of having one person or a couple of people who cover the gamut in my life, I'm much more prone to find people for a specific season or a specific circumstance. So. Um,
mm,
I've gone to mentors when I was in the broadcast world. I looked to have mentors who are ahead of me, who I could learn from, and so kind of in that season. And then when we changed careers, I looked for people who had transitioned kind of mid-career,
mm,
and I got some really good mentoring in that season. Empty nest when it comes to parenting, sort of, and that was kind of informal, but I'd interview people like on the bus, if my kids are in college. Oh, tell me, how did that go? And uh, so I'm pretty active in pursuing mentoring, but not always in the formal way. So
mm,
the only two exceptions to that are Neil and I, my husband and I, have had pretty consistently had marriage mentors in our life.
mm,
A couple that's a season ahead of us that we would, often just say, could you just come alongside us in this season?
mm,
Um, and then I've almost pretty consistently had a spiritual mentor in my life.
mm,
Um, but in terms of career and leadership, and they've been more situational. So I would say that on the spiritual side of things, I had a wonderful, wonderful mentor. And here's where I think um, guides or mentors, and I'm using those interchangeably, I
Yep,
hope.
totally. Yep, that's works.
I think sometimes there are people whose voice our heart and our mind are more open to hear.
Mm,
So this particular spiritual director I had in earlier in my life, he for some reason what he said went directly to my heart.
mm,
It it was like he was speaking a language that I needed to hear. And and so I think there's something in that sort of in that, and maybe it's good advice when we're looking for guides. Find somebody whose voice is just like your head is
mm,
wide open to hear and your heart is wide open to receive. So
mhm.
I don't know. I don't even know if it's definable. And maybe you have a better way to define it, but it's something about the way they see the world, the way they express themselves. It just resonates with you. So
I
he
love
was really
that.
good. And one
Mhm,
of the outcomes of that relationship was he really helped me in a very gentle, kind of patient, persistent way, helped me to see that I was all about performance, that I had a really strong and unhealthy addiction to performance,
mm,
and that there was some performance anxiety that was related to that. And actually, it was becoming detrimental in some of my other
mm,
relationships in my life. So I consider that like a life turning moment. And that happened because I had a good guide in my life. Um,
mm. That's a
and I,
hard thing to say to somebody too.
Oh, well, and again, I don't know that
Yeah.
he ever actually said it. He just
Oh.
kind of patiently asked questions and
Mm,
patiently, and I think for me, that's one of the definitions of a good guide is somebody who
mhm,
leads you to self-discovery
mm,
rather than pronounces, oh, this is what I see in you. Um, so that was really, really helpful. And then one other one, I'll tell you one more story. This was a broadcast person, and it was she wasn't a formal mentor in any way, but she was a very big broadcast figure in Canada.
mm,
Her name is Vicky Gaboreau, and she and I were speaking at an event together. I was the MC, and she was the guest speaker. And they had put on the program that I was the mistress of ceremonies. And so I was, which is kind of an old school way to say MC, but anyway, I was having some fun with this, or I thought I was going to have some fun with this. I've never been a mistress before, and
yeah.
awkward. My husband's in the room, and I was going to
Yeah.
have a little bit of fun with this. But I got kind of nervous because the first time I mentioned it, there was a few. So anyway, all this to say, I didn't do a good job of that little piece of it. And I didn't really do a good job of the evening. Afterwards, she took me aside and she said, Sharol, that actually wasn't a bad bit. She said, but you didn't own it. You did
Oh.
not own it. And if you don't own it, we're not going to own it. So even if you feel like you're going down in flames, give it your best shot because that's your best chance of success. And so she was talking about some, just speaking stuff, but man, that message stuck with me and has stuck with
Mm.
me for the rest of my life. So even when I feel like I'm in a situation where like, oh man, I'm going down here, I throw myself in because if I'm going to go down either way, I might as well go down with
Yeah.
my whole heart, my whole self, and throw everything into it. And if I have any chance of success, that's the only chance, is just kind
Mm.
of going all in. So, anyway, I think sometimes mentors come into your life for just a brief season, but
Yeah.
sometimes they have to say is life changing.
I love that. I'm going to borrow that too. I just love that. I mean, to be upfront and you can read the room. You're someone who knows how to read the room. I can read the room. And when we are failing,
I could tell.
we can tell, can't we, Cheryl? But to
Yeah,
be able to power through and go, oh, I'm going to fail either way. And you might as well just own it. I love that thought. That's really powerful.
yeah, she was great. Anyway,
Oh, that's cool.
with me.
Hmm.
Oh, I was also going to say,
Yeah.
I think our friends can be wonderful mentors, and I'm really,
Hmm.
really blessed. I mean, you've been a wonderful friend and mentor to me. I have spiritual directors for friends. I have
Hmm.
psychologists for friends. So we can do a lot of mentoring in our friendship relationships.
Hmm.
You and I both have spouses who've been good
Hmm.
guides to us,
Hmm.
wise guides in our lives. But there's something really special about having somebody who's outside of those friendships, outside of your family relationships,
Yeah.
because I think they give you a perspective that your friends don't have.
Hmm.
Um, they're a little more dispassionate. They're a little less biased.
Hmm.
And I think they can offer you some good guidance that goes beyond friendship or marriage or
Yeah. Yeah.
just
I
family.
would totally agree. Yeah. And I loved your definition. I actually wrote it down because I just loved it when you said it. You said it so off the cuff that I thought, that's it. It's a good guide is someone who leads you to discovery.
Yeah.
I loved that definition. And I would even add on leads you to self agency.
Yeah.
Isn't that right? Like not only discovering your sense of self, but empowering you to live out of that agency of your sense of self, which I would go ahead.
No, no, you go ahead. I was
Well,
going to
I
cut.
would just say that's probably then the antithesis of that would be the flag, right? If a
Mhm.
guide is not so good, they're not helping you do self-discovery. It's their discovery,
Exactly.
which
They're
can
imposing their world
exactly
yeah,
which
on you.
comes from ego when we do that. And I'll put my fingers back, because we've all done that at some point. And it's also this awareness that there's the importance of having self agency after this discovery. Like, what are you going to do with that discovery?
Yeah.
How is that going to impact and transform your life and
Yeah.
influence the world that you live and lead in?
Yeah. It's almost like guides, their primary focus should be working themselves out of a job.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, just making helping their people become, yeah, agents of their own,
Yeah.
there's their own destinies.
Yeah, it's so true. It's exactly what I feel when I'm working. I don't, as a coach, if they still keep needing me in the same area, and I do
Right.
have a lot of long term clients, but it's not in the same area. They've evolved. And so it's another area we're working on, another area we're talking about. So I think I've had to let go of some clients when I realized, you know what, there's nothing happening in this same area. I don't think we're a fit. I'm going to help you let go of me because I don't see you grabbing onto your self agency. And I want that for you.
Interesting. Yeah. That's what makes you a good coach.
Oh, thanks, Cheryl. Well, I care about people, as I know you do as well. And I
What
think
are
as we
some of the, oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
No, you go ahead.
What are some of the red flags you've seen when it's kind of a not a good fit?
Well, I am a super curious person and I am teachable. The shadow side of that is that sometimes I got overly influenced, especially in my younger years.
Hmm.
So I think that's why I probably tacked on self agency because I thought I found myself almost feeling like I needed to ask permission from my guide if I could think this way or say this thing. And this is clearly in my 20s and my younger years. But I think what I've realized as I've grown and matured is that I want to stay in the driver's seat at all times with my life. And I want a guide who confirms that and supports that. And sometimes guides are uncomfortable with that. So I guess that to me is the biggest flag. And I tell people, test them,
Yeah.
tell them no, tell them you don't want to do it that way. Tell them that's not working for you. Tell them you need another idea. I mean, test them, because if it's about them and their ego, they're not going to appreciate that. But if it's about you, they're going to say, "Oh, thank you for your honesty, because I
Yeah.
want to meet you where you're at." You
Yeah.
always have the right to speak up. And if I'm not meeting you where you're at, boy, we're wasting both of our times. I want to know that.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, no, same sort of thing. I wouldn't say I've ever had any sort of bad guides, but some of that is because pretty intuitively I'm like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So I've walked away from those situations pretty quickly before they've even become guides in my life. Um, but when I'm coaching other people to look for mentors, and primarily this is in the relationship field, and it's usually kind of couples mentoring,
Yeah.
I'll usually suggest that give it 2 or 3 times. Like don't just make a
Mm,
one meeting and make your decision, because first of all, mentors and guides don't have to be your friends. You don't
mm.
even have to really like them. I mean, it helps, I think.
Yes. Yes.
There's some
Yeah.
energy, but that's not the relationship. You're not entering a friendship.
Mm,
You and sometimes you can't assess in one meeting whether these people have something to offer you in the long run.
hmm
So I think sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times meeting together, but we usually tell couples, if you've met with another couple and it's not working, or if you've met with a relationship coach and it's not working, after 2 or 3 times end the relationship.
mm,
It's not good for you, and as you said, it's not, they want to be helpful, and then they're
hmm
not. So
Well, that's
but I've
good.
not really had very many bad guys, but I think intuitively you kind of know, like,
Yeah.
yes, good.
Yeah, I think some people talk themselves out of their intuition. So I guess that's what I want. I hope you're hearing this, listeners, because I've talked myself out of my intuition. I've overstayed at times. And I wish I would have had Cheryl's guidance at some point in my younger years going, yeah, that's not a fit. Yeah, test it this way. No, yep, nope.
It's almost like, well, I've done stupid things. I went to a hairdresser for like 5 years because I didn't have the guts to say that I was going to go somewhere else.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a form of a guide.
But well, but my point is
Yeah.
sometimes we're so afraid, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to
Yes.
them. And so
Yes.
in relationships, guiding relationships,
Yes.
too long.
Yeah.
Um, but it's to both of our detriment. So I thought what you had to say was really good, because you'll fire some of your clients
Yeah.
technically if it
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be working.
Yes. Or, like I'll call them on it. This isn't working. Like, let's talk about if we're fit and let's talk about this. So I think what I'm hearing too, but I wasn't always that way. This is, I think, of something I've always admired about you. And I think it started out in your journalism world. You were not afraid of feedback. In my younger years, feedback was kind of scary for me because it felt too confrontational. I
Mm.
had to get at peace, and it probably threatened my sense of identity or self. It was maybe a little fragiler. But as I got that a little bit more stronger and more clear of who I am and what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, I
Yeah.
got more comfortable with the feedback and even started seeking it out. And I know that's something you taught me. I still remember we were years ago, we were on one of our infamous walks together. And you said, I don't understand where these people aren't wanting this feedback. You were working in a situation where there was some limited feedback, and you were like, I feel like I'm kind of stepping on eggshells. And I was laughing, going, oh, I know this culture. I know what you're talking about. And you said, but I came from the journalism culture where we were all just, if no one liked it, they told you. And we all sat at the table and hashed it out until we got to where we wanted to go. I was like, yeah, the culture that I, that I sometimes see is like there's skittishness around feedback. They're not quite sure how to do it, or they've been traumatized by destructive feedback, not constructive feedback. And so when I come into companies, boy, I have to work a lot on kind of creating some safety and some psychological safety around how we give constructive feedback, which is one of the practices in my Grace Space book is constructive language versus destructive.
Yeah. super valuable.
Mm.
Yeah, I would say most of us aren't naturally responsive to feedback. But when you've lived in an environment where feedback is just expected and it's a
Yeah.
natural, and I think companies and families and relationships should be like that,
Yeah.
just where that kind of feedback becomes a natural rhythm, and then it's not so intimidating. But it always works better when it's in a relationship of trust and when you know they've got your back, which is why a guide is such a great relationship to
Mm-hmm.
get feedback, because their whole purpose is to be your ally,
Yeah.
got your back, they're in your corner. And
Mm-hmm.
so when they offer constructive criticism or feedback that could be taken
Mm-hmm.
personally, you know it's coming because they really do have your best interest
Mm-hmm.
at heart, which is
Mm-hmm.
goes back to make sure you get a good guide.
Mm-hmm. Well, even that woman who came to you and said, that wasn't a bad bit. You just didn't own it.
You
I
just
mean,
own it, baby.
yeah, you can tell it came from a good place. She wanted to see you successful and she wanted to see you be able to know what to do the next time. What a
Yeah.
generous offer. If we
Yeah.
can see it that way, if it's coming from good intent and that's the constructive feedback. But it only takes sometimes one destructive feedback, like name calling or something else, or something that was inflammatory and makes you feel really less of a person, that we
Yeah.
confuse that for feedback or we confuse that for guidance, which is why I was really intentional about using the adjective good in front of it. I want people to feel empowered to seek out good guidance and good guides and to be a good guide and good guidance.
Yeah.
And when people do come to us as guides, what is it that they need? And I guess that's where I'll shoot the question over to you. What do you think people need when they're coming to you?
I think they're, well, I when I am guiding or mentoring someone, I always ask that sort of like,
Mm,
where do you, why are you here? What
yeah.
do you want? And usually there's a presenting issue.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm in a life, I need to make a career choice,
Mm,
or I need to decide if I want to get out of this relationship, or, there's usually a presenting
mm-hmm,
issue. But you know this well enough. The more you talk, the more you realize there's more going on here than that one presenting issue.
mm-hmm,
But I think our role as guides, again, is to guide our, uh,
mm-hmm.
I don't know what you call guidee, the
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who are looking for guidance.
Yes.
Um, I think our role is to lead them to self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a guide, I try never to have a predetermined outcome.
Mm,
Sort of like, oh, I know what she needs, or I know
mm-hmm,
what he needs. I really try to go into a guiding relationship
mm,
with an open mind. Um, I think guides should be willing and ready to speak the truth,
mm,
but there's a readiness assessment that goes with that. And I think
mm,
a good guide knows when the trust has been built, when the relationship is established, and it's good to offer maybe this is some of the hard
mm,
critique that they need to hear. But there's a readiness to that. And I think
mm,
a good guide is wise and discerning to know when that time is.
mm,
I really feel like the best thing a guide offers is just somebody that's an ally in their corner. And
mm.
you know what? We can never have too many of those in our world.
Yes.
Even if
Yes.
we've got a good circle of friends and
Mm-hmm,
family supportive, to have somebody who's our ally in the business world or in the
mm-hmm,
spiritual or in our relationship world, um, man, you can just never get too many of those. So
mm.
my husband and I have a mentor couple that we've invited into our life probably a couple decades ago. And they're now 98 and 91.
Oh,
They're
Cheryl.
Theodore and Lucretia. So that'll tell you how old they are, even if
Yes.
their babies did it. And we just visited them last week, and we
Oh,
walked into their living room, and they pointed out two chairs in front of the window. And they said, you know what? When we get up in the morning, we get our morning coffee, and then we go sit in those chairs. And every morning they're people of faith. She said, every morning we
mm,
pray for you, and we pray for your marriage, and we pray for your family. And I just started to cry. I'm
of
just like,
course.
isn't it for 2 decades, these people every morning have been, along with, praying for their family and their
Yeah.
kids, grandkids, they've been praying for us that we would thrive in our marriage and in our life. Um, and we're not related to these people,
Mm,
I mean, they call us their kids now, but initially they were just a couple that we asked to, could we borrow some wisdom from you?
yeah.
They become beautiful mentors in our life. And so I just think, I
Yeah.
don't know, sometimes just knowing that Ted and Creasure are sitting in their chairs this morning,
Yeah.
thinking about us and cheering us on, man, we can just never get too much of that.
Oh, I so agree that, yeah, that makes me emotional too. Just knowing decades. Talk about the faithfulness of being in
I
your corner.
I know.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And there's some detaily things that I think you should always make sure there's always confidentiality, there's
Hmm.
always good boundaries around the relationship.
Yeah.
Again, people aren't your friends. You don't need
Yeah.
to invite them over for Christmas dinner. I
Mm,
think those boundaries are really
mm,
important. I think the other thing that good coaches offer is perspective, not directives. And
mm,
you kind of mentioned this, like when they start telling you how to respond and behave, and
mm-hmm,
that's not really what I've been looking for in a guide. I'm looking for somebody who will help me see things from a different perspective.
mm-hmm,
And then the last thing I think that guides can offer is some gentle accountability.
mm,
I think we all need that. And I like the word gentle.
mm-hmm,
Excuse me.
mm-hmm,
They're not the principal. They're not the
mm-hmm,
teachers marking us at the end of the process.
mm-hmm,
They're, um, they're providing some gentle accountability to the goals that we ourselves have set,
mm-hmm,
or the direction that we ourselves want to head in. And I just think, again, we could all use a little accountability in our lives as long as
mm-hmm,
it's gentle. We know that it's for our
mm-hmm.
good.
I love that. I didn't know if you knew this too, but I actually use that term gentle accountability as well.
You know, and maybe I got it from you.
No,
from,
I'm sure you didn't. It's probably just both of our intuition going, yeah, we want to be aligning with gentle accountability, not judgmental accountability or in your face, right? And that's where transformation happens when we feel safe emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, mentally. When we feel safe, that's when change happens. So we never want to see anyone in fight or flight or freezing or fawning. We don't want that because your brain has stopped working. It's just trying to figure out how to get out of that situation or
yeah,
survive that situation.
yeah.
Oh, that's
No,
beautiful. It makes me think of a recent story where was working with this beautiful client, and I'd heard some stuff on the back end coming back toward me that I knew was being said about me. Not good stuff. And
oh,
I waited.
names. Come on, Heather.
Yeah. Serious. I'll give her
Take them all.
names. And I waited to see if she would bring it to the table with me because we have a trusting relationship. But she didn't. She didn't. And so I'm in that awkward position going, do I act like I don't know about it? But I was like, no, that's my job for gentle accountability. And I remember we were on Zoom and I leaned into the camera and I said, and we finished a great conversation. I said, all right, I just got to bring up one more thing and it's going to be difficult and we're going to get through this. And I said it, put it on the table. And I know her history was confrontation was hard. So I was
Mm,
like, just again, we're going to get through this. You need to know that I've heard this, but now this is a safe place to open the door. And if there is an issue or something that you need,
yeah,
I want to know. You
yeah.
don't have to tell anybody else. You get to tell me. And
Good.
so it turned into such a rich opportunity to increase the trust. We're still working together.
Mm,
And it was that awkward moment of like, I don't think I can fake it because part of being a coach is being honest on your side too. Like this is what I see and this is actually what people are coming to tell me.
yeah,
You don't know this, but because they're loyal to the situation, the process, they're talking to me about it. And so I care. It wasn't, again, I had to set my own hurt or ego aside. And I was like, no, I really care about you that
mhm,
you feel safe enough to tell me.
yeah,
And
yeah,
not only will this help you grow in your, leadership and your humaneness, being human, but it's going to help you step into a life that you're going to be proud of. And you can look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day because you're saying what you need to say. And it was a turning point. It was a really powerful turning point. And I think about that gentle accountability is being able to gently put the truth on the table and let people see it, let people respond to it, believe in their ability to respond to it. And when it could be a touchy space where you know that their tendency might be to more fight or flight, give a disclaimer. I'm bringing it up because I care.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing it up because I care about you and I care about me and I care about us and I care about our trust.
And we're going to get through this. I love
And we're
that.
going to get through this.
Me
Yeah.
on-
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to get through
Yeah,
this.
this
Like,
isn't a relationship destroying conversation.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to get through this. And I didn't anticipate saying that, but I think I saw the face on the screen. I just smiled and I said, and we're going to get through this. Like, we're going to be better for this. But a lot of people don't have that opportunity to level up in a
Yeah.
safe way, right? It's been traumatizing for them.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah. Go for it.
Because this is the question I get most often asked
Yeah.
about coaches, mentors, guides. How do you find one?
Yeah. I do encourage people to interview.
Uh-huh.
I do believe good coaches give that opportunity, what I call kick the tires. Um, so I think giving people the opportunity, I'll speak from an advantage, or yeah, I've hired my own coaches, and I am a coach, counselors, coaches, mentors, everything. So I always encourage people to interview first and ask some pretty clear questions, and then the coach should be asking you clear questions. So I'm going to just tell everybody my secret sauce behind the scenes. There's 3 questions I ask every time, and I call it my OES. What are your objectives? What are your expectations? What does success look like for you? I want to hear that, and I want them to be able to say it out loud. And I also am monitoring, is this something is in my wheelhouse? And can I best serve this person, or out of ethics, should I be referring them out somewhere else? So it's buying me time to really make sure I'm meeting them where they're at. If a coach or a consultant or even a psychologist is not asking you about you to get to know you, to
Mm.
me, that's the biggest flag.
Yeah.
What do I know? I don't know. Anyone's coming right on. I only do this within 30 minutes, but I'll say, hey, first 15 minutes is all you. I just want to hear about you. The next 15 minutes, I'll tell you about me just for transparency, but I also know how to kind of tailor it.
Yeah.
So if they're bringing up things they don't need to hear about, maybe my work in Belize, or they don't need to hear about my values around whatever constructive communication, what they need is to hear something about maybe relationship building. I'm like, oh, that I'm good at. That I can talk to you about. So then my coaching consult turns into, I'm actually good at this, and I think I could really step into that space with you, and I think we could get some great work done. Or it's, yep, I heard you say this, this, and this. That's really not my forte. Things like, I want a business consultant. I'm like, I am not a business consultant. I work in the business realm, but I don't let that line get blurred. I am a leadership coach and trusted advisor, which means I step into people's lives, and I'm really looking at more of that human factor.
Yeah. Which makes you such a good coach.
Thank you, my friend.
A lot of the people that I work with are looking for kind of informal mentors. They're not looking necessarily to hire somebody. They're looking for mentors or guys
Mm,
and typically what I will say is look around you and find somebody who's living life the way you want to live life,
hmm
whether that's relationally, whether that's career wise, whether that's spiritually. Look around and find
hmm
somebody like, oh, I want more of that. And then don't ask them to be your mentor. Don't ask them to be your guide. I say just take them for coffee and say, could I just
mm,
take you out for coffee and pick your brain on
yes.
a few things?
Yeah.
And then a month later, you do that again. You say, hey, you know what? I enjoyed that so much last time. Could I take you out for coffee again? I have something else I'd like to run by you. And before they know it, they're mentoring you. But
hmm
but I think a lot of people are really intimidated by that kind of mentor or guide label. They're like, well, I'm not qualified for that.
Mm,
And so they'll back away from the relationship, or they think it's going to be too it's going to take over their lives, or they
mm,
too overwhelming. And so I've just but it's a different scenario when you're actually hiring somebody as a coach or as a guide. But if in kind of an informal way, and you know what? So
hmm
much of the guiding that's happened in my life has been informal. It's been,
mm,
relationships like yours, friendships with other people, authors. Some of my best mentors
yes.
and guides have been dead for centuries.
Yes. Yeah. I talked about that in the introduction of the series. There are even guides you may never have met and may never meet, but boy, did they transform us.
Yeah.
Is there any that's coming to mind for you?
Oh, well, I've been in kind of a Catholic saint kick in the last while. So I would say I was reading the biography and some of the writings of Saint Teresa of Avila.
Oh,
And yeah, so I mean, she's become a guide, a
yeah.
spiritual guide, a spiritual mentor, but I can't take her for coffee,
Yeah.
but oh man, so many even current writers, and you kind of pull your mentoring from all places. But I
Mm.
know what you're talking about in this series though is finding a single person that you can
Hmm.
meet with individually. So
Yeah, but I love the creativity of the definition of it. So that's why I've had so many great people on where I love your approach. Yeah, I'm just going to take them out to coffee. I'm like, yes, people, keep it informal. Be
mm,
specific. I love it when people tell me what it is that they're wanting out of me. And then I can be honest whether I can give it or not. But that's to your point. It's also why I asked the question about expectations. And honestly, I wish I had the knowledge to know how to do that. What are the expectations of our relationship when I was looking for guides? I do that now, but I didn't. I was kind of fumbling in my younger years looking for guidance, and I was impressionable, and I also was very strong in my own sense of self and self agency, so I was very selective. But I wish I would have known that, because do you see how much that just heads off when I listen to the expectations? And I'll tell you, number one expectation I hear all the time: accountability. I want accountability.
interesting.
And it's part of my talking points because some of them are used to shaming accountability. And I said, okay, I believe in accountability as well. But here's how I offer it: it's through gentle accountability, it's through respect of personhood. You're going to see me as an ally. And if you don't follow through on an action step, we're going to talk about the why behind it. We're not going to shame you for it, but we are
Wow.
going to set action steps, because if that's where you say you want to go, then we want to make sure we're talking about it. But we also want to be honest about the barriers of maybe what's preventing you from
Yeah.
doing it. Or maybe it was intuition, it wasn't the right timing. These are all things I want to help you respect so that you understand why you might be avoiding or hesitating. It's not always bad either. That's a
Yeah.
gentle accountability. Get to the truth of it, get to the bottom of it. Don't just say, I said I'm going to do it, so therefore you have to do it. I don't agree with that. That's an accountability that I think is low level.
Yeah. When you raise something in that last comment that I think is important. For me, I really like guides or mentors who give me some practical steps.
Mm,
You can live in the philosophical, relational,
yes.
spiritual world, and that's important. But, I'm a get her done girl. So I
Yeah.
actually really appreciate when a guide will guide me to, okay, so between now and the next time we meet, what are you going to work on? Or
Yes.
what's your priority? Or give me some doable steps. I really appreciate that.
Oh, I do too. Yeah. I end every conversation with action steps and takeaways.
Yeah.
And it's so fun. Some people are so clear on their action steps. And I'm like, all right, talk to you next week. You don't need me. You've got your clarity. Other people are kind of like fumbling for it. And I'm like, I've got some ideas. You want my ideas? And then I'll throw it out there. They get to choose of whether they want it or not. And some are just relieved. I'm like, oh yeah, they just need an idea. But it's that permission to, I see myself more as a buffet. You get to choose if you want steak, if you want lasagna, if you want mashed potatoes. Like, we've got a plethora of options.
Mm,
And here's some ideas and options that I think could help you move forward, but I want you to be able to weigh in on it. And I think giving people that space to self reflect. And some of my internal thinkers, I'll say, I've got some thoughts. Do you need some think time on this? And I'll
mm,
put it out there, and they'll be quiet for 2 or 3 minutes. You know how long 2 or 3 minutes are for verbal processors? That's a long time, Cheryl. But I know they need that permission to think. And in a noisy world, talking world, my internal processors, I can see them just, I get a moment. So I think guides know how to check those expectations, and then they get to know their people of what they need. And if they don't know, I just always tell people, just ask them. I just asked a vice president the other day. He said he had something he wanted to work on. I said, okay, do you want to work on it here in this space? Or do you want to have some think time and do some solo time on it? And he
mhm,
was super quiet because he's an internal processor. He was thinking, thinking, thinking. And probably 30 seconds later, which again is a long time, said, I think I want to work on my own and then run it by you. I was like, perfect.
mm,
Then you're moving on to the next topic. So you're pulling out that agency, that self discovery and self agency are two new words that I think really describe great guides and great coaching and great mentoring. you want that type of energy in your life that's saying, I believe in you. I believe that you hold your clarity, confidence, and courage within you. And I'm here to support that coming out of you more.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, this is what makes you such a great guide. Yeah.
Oh, well, I love what all the different angles you're putting on this. And I have something that Darren and I have loved about you and Neil, your husband, is your marriage guidance.
Mm,
And it's been formal and informal. I mean, there's times when we just flat out said, what do we do about XYZ?
mm,
There is an issue happening here. Just be candid with us. And then there's other times where just being around you and Neil, who, to your point, look at people who are further on the road than
yeah.
you and they're ending up where you want to go. That's the number one criteria. I'm like, are they where you want to go? And I think you're what, 10, maybe 15 years
Yeah.
marriage. Yeah. And you guys got married young like us as well. And so we joked about,
We're
oh,
46 years in, so we've got some.
46. Okay. Yeah. We're 32.
Oh yeah, we're down the road.
Yes. And you and we would joke about our young marriages because how many times have you reinvented yourself over 46 years and even over 32 years? And who you are at 23, which is when I got married, and who you are at even 32. I mean, what a vast difference, much less 45 and 55, And I think what I've loved, Darren, I just love that about you and Neil, where you still had this friendship. You had this long term, you had the long game in mind.
Yeah.
And you were some of the rare people that we kind of look to, and still to this day, kind of look at how you all have evolved in your marriage. And I think that has presented such a powerful guide in a world where over 50% are getting divorced. And nobody goes into marriage planning on getting divorced. They go into marriage hoping for the long game. What are
Exactly.
we missing here? You know?
Hey, well, thank you for that nice compliment. You
Mm.
also know us well enough to know we've had plenty of bumps in the road as well. But and we're honest about those. We're
Yeah.
actually transparent about those because if people see your relationship and think you got there without some hard work,
Hmm.
that's doing them no service either.
Right.
So, we're pretty honest about the things we've done poorly and wish we'd done better. And I think
Mm.
that's what also makes a good guide is
Mm.
being willing to say, yeah, I learned this the hard way. I'd really love for you not to have to learn it the hard way.
Hmm.
Again, having your best interests at heart. But thank you for that. And I do think it's my favorite thing, to be honest. Relationship
Mm.
coaching is my favorite thing because it's
Mm.
super dynamic for one thing,
Hmm.
because you got two people and their relationship and how they interact and how they're as individuals. And I just
Hmm.
think it's such a complicated little stew that I love to jump in the middle of and be part of that. But I don't think it's something very many people look for, to be honest, in their
Mm.
lives, in our world. They don't look for relationship mentors or marriage
Hmm.
mentors if you're married. I don't know if it's seen as a sign of weakness or if we just think somehow that we should be able to intuitively know how to do
Mm.
this.
Hmm.
Because we're quite willing to ask for mentors and guides in our workplace, usually in our leadership, in
Hmm.
very specific things. But I think in our relationships, we don't always look for guides, and I don't really know
Hmm.
why exactly. But it's not something we
Yeah.
intuitively learn. We really do have to learn um,
Hmm.
how to do good relationships, especially if our families of origin weren't really a healthy,
Hmm.
you know, greenhouse for that.
Yeah. Greenhouse. That's a great word. I'm thinking about our most recent guide. We're huge fans of marriage counseling, and we've got this beautiful sage in our life, and she's just been amazing to us. But she taught us the term exquisite raw spots. And
Mm.
we were like, huh? What does that even
Yeah,
mean?
what does she-
Yeah, we're two very strong, independent people, but we were hitting on after 30 plus years of marriage, we were hitting on some raw spots that we can hide from everybody else.
Mm.
But when you are you're living in that relationship and then you're going for the long-term relationship where you want to be a part of a thriving marriage, you have to deal with these exquisite raw spots, and you have to know what the other exquisite raw spots. I had to understand what my exquisite raw spot was. I had to understand what his exquisite raw spot was, and then we had to have a new language around it. We couldn't handle it the same way we would handle anything else, and that's why I was kind of mishandling it. I was like learning that in my counseling, going, "Oh, an exquisite raw spot requires a softer touch." Duh. But I didn't see it as an exquisite raw spot because it wasn't something for me.
Sure.
So it's a really basic thought, but it has opened up our whole world. And you talk about a guidance for the next 30 years of our life. We now have a new language for it.
Yeah.
He'll say,
I think, go
yeah,
ahead. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off.
no,
I
go
think that's the
ahead.
thing that good guides do is they give us new language
Yes,
to articulate things that we may be feeling, but we don't know how to express it or how to.
yes,
So language is a huge thing.
yes. And for us, we're both very huge communicators and verbal, but there was something that was hitting at a like a core level.
Yep.
And we're like, oh, that's an exquisite raw spot. And so now we're able to say, I think I'm hitting an exquisite raw spot.
Or ouch, that was an exquisite raw spot.
Exactly. Or give me a moment because I'm just raw right now. Like I don't even know what's happening. So I think having like you said, having that language to understand knowledge really is power. And when you understand what's happening to yourself and to the other person, the relationship starts creating more sense, and you start creating more intelligent ways to navigate it and more loving ways that honor your sense of self and it honors the other person that you're committed to.
Yeah.
Mm.
One more thing I'll say about relationship coaching, and excuse me for my cold.
That's okay.
I'm battling it, but I will say I strongly encourage couples who are new in their relationship, whether they're newly married or just new together, to find some guides and some mentors in
Yeah.
that relationship. Because then what happens, it just becomes a pattern of life. And so
Mhm.
you don't wait until, oh, we're in trouble, we need a guide, or we need a
Yes.
therapist, or we need it just becomes a pattern and part of your life, and it
Yeah.
feels natural and normal. And you can,
Mhm.
and you and Darren have been such good models for that. You've always had people in your life in good times and in difficult
Mhm.
things. You've had these wise guides in your life. And
Mhm.
I think that's an incredible thing to model.
Well, you thank you, Cheryl, and you're right on. If you don't decide that you want them or need them, right there is probably half the issue. I think for us, we looked around and saw so many marriages dissolving, and we saw very little that we actually aspired to be. Some of them that were in their 30, 40 years, they were not kind to each other. They were not good friends. They were not best friends.
Mm.
And we just realized if this were easy, we'd all be thriving. This clearly choosing marriage is probably the biggest challenge of our lives. Let's
Yep.
like not be naive about this. And so early on, we decided every 5 years we'd get counseling. So it's that idea of preventative thinking. We're into preventative health. We're into preventative, mental health, emotional health, physical health. Why wouldn't we be into preventative marital health? That you're right. We wait too long. And
Mm.
I just sometimes I listen to some of these and I think, how long has this been going on? Like we're talking decades, decades. And it makes me so sad that they didn't have some of that relationship coaching early on or recognize that there actually is a better way.
Mm.
And so I think that would be the hope I want to give our listeners. If something's off and it doesn't feel good, there is a better way.
Mm.
It's
Mhm.
okay if you don't know it. That's what guides are for. Find someone who's doing it, go ask them.
And this is why, and again, I'm not flattering you, but I think it's true. This is, I think, why you're such a great guide and such a great coach, is because you have really gone after it proactively in so many areas of your life,
Mm,
relationally speaking, spiritually speaking, leadership wise, just life coaching and life goals.
mhm,
And so I think you can tap into that on a bunch of different levels when you're guiding someone or coaching someone. I think that, so that's one model where you find one person who's so
mm,
well-rounded and so expert in so many areas that you can go to
mhm,
them with just sort of all of your life.
mhm,
Then I think on the other side, there are the situational mentors that I talked about
mhm.
at the beginning,
Love
where
that.
find somebody who's
Mhm,
gone through what you're going through right now, and then you seek out their
mhm,
wisdom. And I think there's value in both. I think, man,
Mm-hmm.
if you can ever land on somebody who can kind of talk to you about all areas of your life, like you should pay that person a lot of money. Little plug for Heather there.
Thank you, my friend.
But most of us,
Mm-hmm.
just, we just need to pick and choose our
Mm-hmm.
guide for that season or for that specific issue in our life. And that's okay too. And because
Yes.
I've gone to some guides who, quite frankly, I would never ask them for marriage advice or,
Mm-hmm.
but I really wanted to learn how they navigated this transition,
Mm-hmm.
from a hardcore corporate environment to a not-for-profit environment. That was a big turn for me. I needed a lot of guidance in
Yeah.
that turn. And I sought out specific people who'd done that same
Mm-hmm.
move in their career.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not in my life now, and I don't even know where they are, but they mentored me in that season. So
Yeah, they're critical,
yeah,
pivotal.
so I think there's multiple kinds of guides, but those two I would identify as being really different, but both important.
I love that. Gosh, I love that. I love that perspective. And I love that it gives people the permission to find them however they need to. Sometimes you know specifically what you need, find someone in that realm and don't worry about the other realms. Let yourself off the hook to have it the mastered other realms. Find that one selective realm and just have one conversation. Sometimes it's all you need is one conversation.
Mhm.
Mm. Well, as we start wrapping up, I've loved our conversation. Sharol, thank you so much for joining me today and just sharing your wisdom. What would you like to leave as an encouragement for our people listening?
Oh, well, I would say find good guides in your life. Find them where if you hire them, great. I think there's something really healthy about that relationship because the boundaries are kind of
Mm-hmm.
predetermined. But find a good guide or find good guides in your life and then be a good guide. And I
Mm.
think, most of us feel like, well, I haven't even got my own, I was going to swear on your podcast. Sorry. I haven't even got my own stuff together. How can I be a guide to somebody else? But there's
Yeah.
some area of expertise that we do have in our lives that
Mm-hmm.
we should be willing to offer to other people. And
Mm-hmm.
the older I get in my life, the more joy it gives me to see other people thriving. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think when you live with that sort of perspective, like I want everybody around me to thrive,
Mm-hmm.
um, then you become much more open and willing to guide where you can and
Mm-hmm.
be a mentor where you can. And then the other thing I'll say is it's not age related. Uh,
Mm.
you know what? Some of the best mentors I've had are much younger than me, like you.
Mm. Oh
But
gosh,
people who
thanks.
I look at them, I think, oh man, you're doing life right.
Mm.
I would just like to learn from you. And so
Mm.
it's not age related. It's not gender connected. It's not
Mm.
doesn't have to be socioeconomic kind of parity.
Mm.
But like pick and choose the mentors around us when we just
Mm.
we're doing life well.
Mm. Doing life well. Oh, I love that. I love that. And the thread that I've heard throughout this whole conversation is pick a guy that's so for you. They
Mhm.
want to
And
see
be
you.
a guide that you're for other people. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Don't let anyone threaten you. Um, the focus really is everybody gets to have a beautiful, thriving life. And if you get to be a part of that, awesome. If you have to bow out, no shame. Bow
Mhm.
out. Let that person fly. But I think you're right on. Being able to step into that space and really honor that space helps our people
Mhm.
do the self discovery. I think that's our running theme that you brought up, and I keep tagging on self agency, but I just love that
I
self
like them both.
discovery.
I really do like them
Don't
both.
you? Yeah.
They go hand in hand. Yeah, because if you just
Yeah.
self-discover and then don't do anything about it,
Exactly. Yeah.
like I know myself really well, but if it doesn't actually change what we do and how we live our lives, so I
Yes.
you need both actually. I think
Yeah.
that's
That could be our next book together there, Sharol. In all your spare time.
and yours. Always
Thank
lovely to talk to you.
Oh, thanks so much for joining us today, Cheryl. And if you all have loved what you've heard today, you can review us, rate us. We'd love to have that. It helps us out a lot. And we also have a lot of this in the show notes. If you want to reach out to Cheryl, or if you see what she's doing, she's over there in Canada, which we love, our neighbors to the north, and doing a lot of work up there.
I feel
So
like we just got broken up with. So that's really nice to hear from you.
Nope. We're not breaking up, Sharol. There's people that believe in Canada here in America. We're ignoring some of this other stuff. So join us, listeners. We love our Canadian friends, and I know the Canadians love us too as North Americans. We don't have to listen to some of these leaders that are trying to divide. We don't believe in division. We believe in unity.
Good.
Take care, my friend.
You too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's an honor to be with you.
You too. Cheering you guys on.